Hi, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my craft room. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. I'm going to be making a card inspired by this Welcome Everything is Fine stamp set, and I will also be using some other stamps from Ink Road as well as a stencil from Heffy Doodle and some images from Fawn to help me create a fun scene to pay tribute to the good place in this card. I'm going to be starting with my background. I have this piece of mixed media paper and I'm going to use my Make Art station to do some distress blending on my balloons. I picked 6 different colors because I wanted to create a rainbow color of balloons on my background. So once I have my stencil down, I'm going to use my magnets just to help keep everything in place. And I'm going to start with my red. And I'm only going to show each color one time. I fill up my stencil without moving it, and then I will fill in more balloons by just moving my stencil around in different spots, just to make sure that I don't have any like really large open areas with no balloons. So it starts off clean with just putting the stencil one way and then flipping it over so the balloons are in a different spot. But then I end up moving the stencil around to fill in my colors. So I went from red to yellow and then blue and then green, purple, and orange. But then I really just go in with all the colors and just fill in spots that need some balloons. I try to overlap my balloons too using the Oxide, so that way there was kind of a translucent effect and you could see balloons that are either in front of it or behind it because they layer really well together. I used a rectangle die to cut that out, and then I will move on to my images. I have stamped the couch from the winter or the window scene winter clear stamps, as well as 2 potted cactus from the year 10 stamp set, but from Fawn. And I stamped them in my ink on 3 blackout ink, which is my go-to ink for alcohol marker coloring. And then I'm using my alcohol markers, which are by Spectrum Noir, the Illustrator markers, to color in my couch. I am using MBs 1, 2, 3, and 4 to color in my couch. 3, 2, 1 are used for the actual couch, and 4 is to color in the feet of the couch. For my cactus pots, I want it to be kind of a terracotta feel, so I'm going to be using my burnt oranges to color in, as well as a coral color to kind of pinken it up, if that makes sense, because terracotta is more like a red-orange color. So once I have a layer of that down, I'm just going to go back the other way. So using my mid-tone BO and then a dark BO to add shadow. And I'm going to repeat this for the other potted cactus. For the cactus themselves, I'm using my DGs, which are dark greens, in 4, 3, and 2. I'm starting with the 4 as my shadow, bringing in 3 as my midtone, and then I will color in the whole cactus using DG2. And there you can see all of my images are stamped. I can go ahead and die cut or cut them out. I use a die cut for my couch, and then I fussy cut my cactus because I don't have the die. But before I do, I'm using my white gel pen to cover any spots where my ink might have gotten out of the lines a little, and just to add some highlights and character to the images. So here they are cut out. I'm going to layer them onto my card so I can get kind of a feel of what I'm doing. So that will be the bottom of my card, and I'm going to work on my sentiment. I'm going to be using some Versamark, as well as an embossing powder from Kindred Stamps. This is the Emerald City embossing powder, and there's some glitter in there, so it's a really nice green, which is, you know, how it is in the TV show, but also some shimmer because I don't know how to make a card without something shiny on it. So I have a white piece of cardstock, and I'm using my anti-static powder because I'm going to be stamping with Versamark and embossing, and I'm stamping the Welcome Everything is Fine sentiment from the stamp set. I stamped it twice to make sure I had enough ink on there because it is a brand new stamp. And then I'm going to use that embossing powder to layer on that pretty green color. So once I'm happy with the coverage, I'll go ahead and clean this up and then use my heat gun to melt the embossing powder. Because it has glitter in there, I start from the back and make sure it has a pretty good melt, and then I go on the front just to make sure I didn't miss any spots. So I trimmed it down to fit nicely around my sentiment, but I wanted to add a little bit more, like a kind of a border between my sentiment and my background. So I grabbed my glitter paper in holiday colors from Fawn, and I'm going to create a thin border. So instead of measuring, I'm just kind of winging it here on my paper cutter to make sure that I have cut just a small border around. It's probably like a 1/16 of an inch all the way around my sentiment. And I'm going to double up on my adhesive. I'm using my strong tape runner as well as wet glue because I am gluing onto a glitter cardstock, and sometimes just tape runner or just wet glue makes it kind of difficult. So I'm going to use both to make sure that this piece of paper sticks to my textured sparkle cardstock. And now that my sentiment is done, we can start putting this card together. As you can see, it's going to go very nicely onto my card at the top here. So while I was putting together how I'm going to do my layout, I noticed that there was a spot where the ink from my stenciling kind of got into a spot where I didn't want it to be. So I thought I would cover it using one of my little random dot clusters here from Ink Road, just to add a little bit of texture and hide the part of the stencil ink blending that was outside of where I wanted it to be. So that way you can't even tell that there was a weird yellow spot that shouldn't have been where it was. So that little cluster of dots there just covered that right up. I'm going to put some foam tape behind my sentiment, and I'm going to get my card centered here on my mat, and that way I can center my sentiment as best as possible on the top part of my card. And I'm going to place it down without pressing too hard because I want to make sure it's straight. And then once I'm happy, I will press that down. I'm going to also pop up my couch, but just using some foam squares. I'm going to cover the back of it except for the arms because I'm going to layer my cactus one behind and one in front. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't have any foam tape, or I'm sorry, foam squares where I didn't want them. So you can see there I can still slide that cactus behind it. So I'm going to put foam squares behind this complete cactus and slide that in behind the couch, and trying to make sure the pot and the feet of the couch are on the same level, and that way it's, there's no floating couch or plants. And then I put foam squares except for the little part of the cactus that is overlapping the couch, and place that onto my card. And I'm really happy. I like the scene. I think it's fun. I feel like if you don't know the show references, it's still kind of a cute card, but has some subtlety from The Good Place. I'm going to adhere this to a white A2 side folding card base, which I just rotated it since it's a horizontal card. I have these emerald rhinestones from Trinity Stamps, and I thought they would go really nice with the card, so I'm just going to use my jewel picker and place them in random spots around the sentiment, and then use my wet glue to adhere them down. And normally I would stop here, but I have my handmade stamp set from Ink Road, and I wanted to add this funny stamp to the back of the card, which shows a do not, symbol of someone throwing trash away, and it says don't even think about it, which, we better not be throwing our handmade cards away. Just don't even think about it. And of course I have my new stamp that I'm placing on my card as well. And then I thought for the inside sentiment, I love saying take it sleazy. I think it's one of the best running jokes in the show. So I'm inking that stamp up in my VersaFine Onyx Black, and I'm going to stamp that to the center inside of my card as best as I can, and hold it there for a second. Make sure it has fully inked the inside of the card, and here you can see I absolutely love this stamp set, and I love this card. I'm excited to send it out as a roadie rack or random act of kindness. Hopefully I can pick someone from the list that loves The Good Place as much as I do. Here is a close-up of the card, and I really hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye.